Okay, so I appreciate very much those scenes of Maya and Sierra, excuse me. I told you I don't really watch it much. Poor Auntie E. But I very much appreciate their positioning and their open-heartedness, and sharing to their castmates and their housemates, the feeling of outsideness and otherness that they have both experienced their whole lives as Black women in America and Black women in very white spaces, and now as Black women in a highly visible white social circle. I thought it was very important work that they did there. I also think their castmates were able to hear them and sit with more reception to them because they were crying. I really do. I think when people, and this is race, regardless of race, I think this is true of, the male-female dynamic. When people start with the emotional plea versus the kind of more even-handed, cerebral, let me walk you through the systemic thing that's happening here, I think people sit in a posture of defense. I think they clam up, and I think they get very hostile towards the messaging and the messenger. Versus when the messenger is literally sitting there with a face full of tears and pleading for acceptance and acknowledging you as a gatekeeper that holds the keys to their social admittance to a space that they dominate. It's a lot easier to hear that and be sympathetic to that.
Interesting. I never really thought about it like that.
It's okay, baby. That's why I'm here.
Seriously, did you see how I'm like?
I know, and I love that you're.
Like, okay.
But when I say it, you don't have to agree. But could you see that process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It almost then, to your point, is giving the other people power. It's almost like saying
exactly. So I'm coming to you with a point in deference to your power.
Right.
And I'm pleading with you, really. It's less of a negotiation and it's more of an emotional, desperate plea that says, please stop otherizing me. Please allow me to play with you, essentially, and take part in your, social environment. And that gives the other person listening a lot of power versus someone more like myself or, my friend Crystal Kung Minkoff that are very open to negotiating what this shared coexistence looks like between us as women of color and white women. And no one's trying to displace white women. I think that's the first missed message, right? Is that like, oh, here come these women of color trying to take over our show. Honey, I'm one person. It's not ever going to happen. RHONY will never be a Black show. You have to never, ever in a million years worry about that. And any more so than Beverly Hills will become a predominantly Asian show. It'll never happen in a million years. We're simply coming in the posture of more of a kind of equitable negotiation of social positioning because we're not willing to defer ourselves in a subordinate role. And I think that is met with a lot more defense and hostility.
Do you think Summer House handled those episodes well, like having watched them?
Absolutely. But again, it's not an pun intended, it's not an apples to apples comparison because of that different emotional tactic. And we won't even get into the generational stuff, but just sticking with the emotional components. That's what I saw. That was very different. And if you notice, the audience celebrated, and I was right there clapping along with them, David. This is a beautiful moment of highlight. That whole episode was really peaked in race, and nobody was throwing a tantrum about it. In fact, people were celebrating everybody from production to executives to the castmates. The problem with RHONY wasn't when we had episodes that centered around race. It was the way in which the, dominant veteran cast members who the audience are in primary relationships with, which is normal, seeing them be so hostile and uncomfortable and unable to cope, And so if your primary anchor to the show, which are the OGs, if they can't cope, you're not going to be able to cope with a brand new person you just met 5 minutes ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
I never thought about it from the emotional crying ever.
I think
it makes sense.
Oh,
now.
David, let me tell you what else I'll bet my law degree on. If I had gone to Luann after the angry comment and I'd come hat in hand and I'd sat there in Ramona's living room and I'd said, Ramona, Luann, I'm so sorry that I made you upset in your home, Lou. But I'm just so tired of being the only Black woman and having to bear the burdens of Blackness. Can you please accept that apology? and understand where I'm coming from. I just want to be a part of you guys. Please. I think it would have been met differently.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing, but it's true.
Yeah. And you'll all be waiting for a very cold day in an icy, icy hell for that to ever happen, because that's just not in me. But what I can
Right.
do, and what I think I actually still, watching it back, did extremely well, is make the space for that negotiation.
Right. And do you think, I mean, some of it has to do with the age difference? I mean,
Some, sure. Yeah, I mean, let's not forget in this nation, David. I mean, what are we with 2022? 2 weeks ago we finally had a federal anti-lynching statute passed?
yeah.
Like, that's real life. I think that the election of Obama and some other kind of virtue signaling things have really confused our beautiful, beloved nation as to progress we've made on racial hierarchy and social order in ways that just have not evolved. Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Too.
And that's not even a critique. That's just an observation.
I agree with that. I agree with
Mhm.
all of that. And I do agree that whoever's back or not back or fired, the Jenny situation is not because of the people.
It's not because of the people, baby. So y'all can, some of the folks, and I know, especially folks that love and listen to your show, which is why I love doing your show, because it's a little bit going into the lion's den, just a touch. And I enjoy the lion's den, which is why I was at Fox for so long.
At least you know you're coming into the lion's den. Some people don't know they're coming in.
Oh, well, I feel very bad for them.
It's not like I'm trying to hide that.
No, you
I'm just
don't. I mean,
like-
those people haven't listened to the show, and I have no pity for them, because if you don't prepare, you prepare to fail, right?
kind of.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I enjoy your audience. I enjoy their feedback, as hostile and critical as sometimes it is. And it's not all like that. Some of the people really love, when I come on here and engage with an audience. Listen, I could easily just always do, podcasts that are here for, Black liberation. I don't know that always moves the needle,
Right.
in the way that my particular work is designed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel not just even with you, a lot of times this audience will tell me like, oh, I like that person. Not just, I mean,
Yeah.
not that that's the goal, but
No,
sometimes...
not that that's the goal, but just to open up the dialogue. So if people hear this conversation we're having right now, David, and they at least ponder, like your face kind of ponder,
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, but that's an interesting proposition. Our work here was good.
I actually agree with it. I just
Yeah.
never thought of this whole
Mm-hmm.
emotional approach versus non. And now that you relate that to these Summer House episodes, I'm like, wow.
Only because I have done that approach earlier in my days. I have been on the cheerleading squad. I have been in the pageant circuit, where it is this desperate plea. I'm just too old for it now.
Also, I mean, there's something about lawyers because I'm not. You'll never. It's not in me. Like
not
you'll
in you.
never
Yeah.
see me saying like, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
And if you just accept me into your other or whatever
Right,
mask,
right.
that will never be me.